Spencer Richey spent an entire decade in Major League Soccer, but now he's playing an entirely different game. He retired from the sport that he loved not because he had to, but because he was ready to scale something entirely bigger.
And I love that experience as well of helping people gain access to real estate or build wealth through real estate, whether they don't have the time or the knowledge or they don't.
He's helping other pro athletes rethink their wealth, reposition their careers, and reinvest their success.
Once some of those early dominoes start to fall, those minor doubts and hesitations you had of yourself, you're like, oh, that was just noise. Like, I know I can do this.
This isn't just a story about life after soccer. It's a blueprint for what's possible when you bet on yourself. From locker rooms to luxury stays, Spencer's journey is what happens when you refuse to be defined by one identity.
Why I got into this, because I want to give people access to really cool real estate opportunities. And we fortunately now have the experience.
My name is Jason Muth. I'm a 33-time Airbnb superhost. After 25 years working in the media business, I shifted my career, and my chapter 2 is in the world of short-term rentals. Since then, we've hosted over 6,800 guests and their furry friends, and now manage more than $30 million worth of vacation homes between the ones that we own and the ones we manage for our clients. And this show is all about helping you create a smart stay, personal, profitable, and built to last. It's real world hosting done smart. And now, here's our chat with Spencer. And wear our polo shirts. And of course, mine makes me look grayer. Yours just makes you look all right.
You
Well, you look great too. I mean, this is Spencer always looks great. This is Spencer Richey, and we've never met in person, but I've known Spencer through our real estate mastermind, STR Secrets, that I was a part of, and I just shared with Spencer that I'm re-listening to another series that both of us went through last year called Limitless, and these recordings were from a year ago. So I'm hearing me and you and everyone else talk about what was going on a year ago in our lives. And I'm doing that in real time right now on my old man walks, which are right after I drop off my daughter. I just walk downtown and back. But there's a lot that's been happening in your life in the past year, which is fantastic. Can't wait to get into this. This is, I'm going to let you introduce you in a second.
Yeah.
But in the past year, I mean, you just had another baby, right? Which I saw on Instagram, which is probably the most important thing of all of this. And it sounds like you've launched about 7 businesses. So let me pass it over to you. Right.
It feels that way.
And there's a cool little twist in your whole story, which we'll get into later on here at Smart Stay Show. But Spencer, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I am wearing a polo today. This is one of my golf polos. As you mentioned, I have a newborn, so this is as close as I've been getting to playing golf lately. But no, thank you for having me. Yeah, Spencer Richey. I'm based in Seattle, grew up here. I've moved around the country quite a bit the last 10 years as a professional soccer player in MLS. Got into real estate in 2016 with an Airbnb property. My brother and I, no idea what we were doing, but absolutely fell in love with the concept of short-term rental and listing ops and all that stuff. So kind of along my real estate journey, that progressed into becoming a real estate guy. And some of the locker rooms I was in continued to buy more deals, sometimes with teammates, capital partners. And I love that experience as well of helping people gain access to real estate or build wealth through real estate, whether they don't have the time or the knowledge, or they don't want to have the knowledge, they don't have someone in the space they trust. And so really the combination of those two things of Airbnb, short-term rental, and helping people build wealth through real estate are what I'm passionate about from that standpoint. And as you mentioned, married to my lovely wife, we have a 3-year-old daughter and a probably almost 7-week-old daughter. So we're in the thick of it right now, but very grateful to be where I am at, both from a family side, which is most important, and also a business
Girl
side.
dad times 2. So we're girl dads times 1. We have a 6-year-old now as we record it. So you remember every day like prior. So I could look at your daughters and probably identify to the month as to how old they were without your telling me, because I remember all these ages. Oh yeah, it's this weird skill. Yeah. But then anything above her age, I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know. You're like 10 or 12 or something.
Same.
I
No
didn't
idea.
realize that you got into this in 2016. So we bought our first short-term rental property also in 2016. Also, when we didn't know what we were
There we
doing.
go.
It was one of those like on the side things while we had like our full-time career that I was working toward. Had no idea that I'd be doing this full-time back then. I mean, you probably thought you'd be playing soccer forever. I mean, you knew you wouldn't be, but I'm sure that the guys that are playing are like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'll keep getting contracts and just, you see these young kids coming up behind you and you're like, oh, it's got my spot. Um,
Yeah, I
I
know.
should share. I can't share it right now, but like my daughter had her first soccer game for the season on Saturday, and she got to try goalie for the first time. She loved it, and she
Did
did.
she?
Yeah, I mean, like she kept trying to run into the goal in the prior years, but it was always like 3-on-3, and you weren't allowed to have a goalie at that age. But now you're allowed to have a goalie, and I can't say that her success rate was as high as yours. She did stop one out of the 4 shots on her goal, but you know what? Hey, she stopped one.
Okay. As long as she enjoyed it at
She
that age,
did. She
that's all
loved
that
it was
matters.
the most. I told my friend who's a coach, I'm like, this is the most engaged I've ever seen Cecily at a soccer game. Because usually she's like running over to us or running into the woods or kind of spinning around. And this was like, wow, like I'm on a team. I'm running back and forth. I'm passing the ball. I'm saying who I'm passing it to. I was super proud. It was a great moment.
That's awesome. I know my wife and I have been talking a lot about getting Cameron, my oldest, into soccer. She keeps saying that she likes soccer
Okay.
ball, so we have one we kick around the house a little bit. But I also want her to kind of pick her own things that she wants to get into. I don't want her to feel like she needs
Yeah.
to play soccer because Dad played soccer. So, but we'll throw her in different things: dance, gymnastics,
We
soccer,
just
volleyball,
started
whatever, and see
dance
what she's
yesterday and she
into.
loved that too. But we
Nice.
as I was kind of preparing for this episode, I didn't want to dig too deep into soccer and your background because that's the obvious thing to talk about. And if you're a fan of MLS, you might know Spencer. If you're not a fan of pro soccer here in the United States, you might just realize that he's a pro athlete, which was cool unto itself. It's really tough to get to that level for anybody. But I do remember in all the recordings of Limitless, like part of what we were being taught was like letting go of your past identity and rebranding yourself as to who you want to be and kind of moving forward and changing your identity in the minds of the people around you. And I've been undergoing that same process the past 3 years to the point that I'm extremely comfortable with who I am now going forward. Um, but I do want to talk about it because you brought it up and you were talking about the locker room and how you were kind of the real estate guy in that locker room. So describe that transition between you being an elite pro athlete, but also this real estate guy on the side. Like, what were the conversations like from your teammates and your coaches in saying to you, like, "Hey, listen, Spencer, I need you to stop some balls when we put you in the goal, but like, can you help me out with this deal?" What was that conversation like?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because I largely was very private about my real estate activities when I was playing outside of the locker room. Within the locker room, anything goes, as you might imagine. But in terms of like coaching staff and club execs and the front office and whatnot, I was pretty private around it. I just didn't want to open myself up for in the event if I F up on the weekend and then all of a sudden I'm posting about real estate on Monday. It's a
Mm-hmm.
bad look, right? So, um, really it was, I, I was pretty open minded early in my career of, obviously I had these long-term goals of, it was always a goal of mine to play 10 seasons in MLS. Like it's one thing to get drafted. It's another thing to sign your first contract, but really to sustain a career and continue to play and get contract after contract is tough. Right. So from a soccer side, that was always my goal, but I knew that, pro athlete, pro sports, it's a short career, right? And so having that like longer term mindset early on in my career, I think I had some great mentors and I knew that eventually it would end. And so early on, someone said to me, you'll never have more time in your life than you do right now as a professional soccer player. We get home at 1, 2 o'clock in a given day. Like we travel on the weekends, a lot of time in hotels and whatnot. And so really I looks long term of like, what do I want my life to look like when I'm 40, when I'm 50, when I'm 60? And what can I do on the side that is going to start to compound and, accelerate my path, my family's path to getting to that point. And real estate is just, I fell in love with it. And so, yeah, started off very shooting from the hip. I'm kind of that type of guy, for better or for worse. And so got into it in 2016. And really what changed for me was when my first daughter was born back in the end of 22. And that was the first time where, the sacrifices that come with sports in general, but especially at a pro level, just became really heavy. I mean, it was already hard missing weddings, being away from my wife every other weekend for 11 months out of the year, all those things, right? But really, once my daughter was born, was my light bulb moment of like, it's time to ramp up the real estate activity. And so that's what I did. And that was, my final contract once my daughter was born that I had signed in Chicago, that 3-year deal, and fortunately put the steps in place and put the businesses in place to be able to, support that decision to walk away from the game
Do you think that
last
a lot
year.
of teammates kind of have that same vision of what's next after soccer? It's got to be tough because you're just so deep in it, having to perform on the field.
No, some guys do. Like, I had a ton of teammates who maybe started coaching programs, like getting their C license, B license, A license, because they want to get into that side. Some guys taking MBA programs. MLS does a pretty good job of giving guys the resources if they want to have an eye on what's next after you're done playing. But um, it's a really fine line of having that unwavering, almost like, blind confidence, which you do have to have, like if you're going to compete at a high level, that you're going to excel in your career and score this many goals or whatever it is. And so it's a really like fine line of having one eye on what's next and being like, well, what if this is my last deal? While also the other side of your mind that's just like that unwavering belief that like you're the shit and you're going to play well and you're going to get a new deal and you're going to stay healthy. So it's a tough balance to have. And I think that you probably do have to sacrifice a little bit of one to get the other and vice versa. And kind of depends on what eggs you put in what basket.
When you joined STR Secrets, I was always interested, in this professional athlete who was in this group with all of us that all came from different backgrounds, most of whom, probably everybody else, was not a professional athlete, but was a career changer, which you were and you are at this point. I remember listening and hearing when you were out there pitching for your first couple co-hosting deals, with your building sound stays. So where are you now with that part of your business?
Yeah, so it was definitely rough at the start. I guess I'll begin there. Of I had that, and I think you see a lot of professional athletes go on to be really successful in other endeavors, and it's probably, in my opinion, it's because they're pulling on that confidence they get of that they're already a high achiever, and if they can do it here, you can apply it to other areas of life. Um, and so that was my mindset going in. With that said, I knew nothing about sales. I knew nothing about building a business. I knew real estate, but in terms of boutique, Airbnb, property management, short-term rental property management, I mean, I knew nothing. Fortunately, I had a couple of properties in Seattle, Airbnbs, that were performing well, and so I could lean on those, and I could say to people, "Hey, I don't know anything about about running a business like property management. What I know is Airbnb, and I know how to optimize listings. I know how to manage them and get the most out of your property." And so that was largely my pitch early on. It took a while. I didn't get, I think I started the company early. What would that have been?
24.
Early
Mm-hmm.
2024. Yeah, probably in the spring. And then didn't get my first client until last July. So about 14 months ago. Um, and we are now up to, I think, 14 or 15 properties. And our annual commission is somewhere in that, like, probably
Mm-hmm.
250 range, as a company. So it's been awesome. It's allowed me to hire some virtual assistants who are absolutely incredible, and also allowed me to hire a head of ops here locally, to help with some of the in-person stuff. So long answer short, I think just drawing on some of that past success that I've had in my life, of having that mindset of like, okay, things work out for me. This is going to work out for me. Even when it didn't look great at times early on. Once some of those early dominoes start to fall, those minor doubts and hesitations you had of yourself, you're like, oh, that was just noise. Like, I know I can do this. So, and that's kind of my mindset now, both with Soundstays and my other business endeavor.
When I spoke with Mike Riley, probably 2 years ago at this point, when I said, hey, I have this idea, I think I actually might want to co-host after all, because I was very steadfast on saying I don't want to launch a co-hosting business. I didn't want to have clients. I didn't want to answer to people. Just wanted to ride off to the sunset with the properties that we had. He said, all right, your first 2 are going to be hard to find and get, and then you'll be at 10 before you know it. And I didn't believe him. And that's exactly what happened. Right. So it sounds like that happened to you. Yeah.
Same. Oh, it was just absolutely just trying to manhandle, like, cold call, skip tracing. I was doing it all. I was grinding away, which I think sometimes there's great satisfaction that comes with that. Is there a more efficient way and savvy way I could have gone about getting Soundstays off the ground? For sure. But it makes where we are at now as a business a lot more fulfilling.
Because you did it. You did the work also leading up to it. And I feel the same way. It's that fine line between removing yourself from the business so you're not so reliant upon it, where if you go down, the whole business goes down. But there's also I'd like to learn how to do all these things myself so I could probably train other people well on how to do that stuff. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Once upon a time, someone told me, like, you should never own a restaurant if you've never been a waiter. And I'll always remember that saying of, like, to me in business, it's so true of, until you've done the skip tracing, you've optimized properties, you have a decent idea of revenue management, all those things then give you the full package skill set. Like, ourmonday.com, for example, right now, like, I have no idea what's going on or, like, how to operate monday.com. But what monday.com does is organize the team to accomplish the certain tasks. And of those tasks, I've been through many, many times. Right. So there, to your point, reaches, I think that there is components of the business that are absolutely crucial that the leader, CEO, whatever, needs to have cut their own teeth on those tasks and learning how to do those. But once you scale and get more, then to your point, I think you need to pick your battles on, like, what things you need to be super knowledgeable of. And at what point do you, try and hire great team members and give them the freedom to do what they do best.
I had a hard time letting go certain things. And I think I still keep the stuff that I don't mind doing. I don't know if you do that. But, the stuff that doesn't give me energy is going onto a list, and on that list are check boxes where I can try to figure out how to get somebody else to do that thing, and then I can check it off that list. But I say that because we do have 2 VAs for the company. We don't have anyone local like you do, but I have a network of people who are in Provincetown for that business, and then in New Hampshire, I have my network of cleaners and handymen and stuff that I just kind of coordinate, but the VAs do too. So this past Sunday was the first day that both my VAs were off. One of them's normally off. The other one took off for the day. So I was like, all right, whatever. I'll just cover for the day. That's not a big deal. And very quickly in the morning, I was like, I'm turning on Host Buddy for the day. Like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, so I launched my AI service for the day and figured if there's any fires, I could jump into them. But I was just like, I don't want to deal with this right now. Like, I already did this. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tempting to kind of jump right back in, but if there's a better way to do it with the systems that we built, I think that's probably the smarter way to go about doing it.
Yeah. 100%.
So, all right. So you have Soundstays, which is still growing, right? You're still adding on properties, right? And do you?
For sure. Yeah. We got two.
Do you own any of those, or that's fully co-host?
I own just one of them. I used to own 2. But my brother and I were partners on it, and he met his now wife and said, "Hey, Spence, we got to sell this because I got to go buy the house." So we just have the one property.
And are all the Soundstays properties in the Seattle area?
Yes, all very urban at the moment. So within 15 minutes of downtown. We've considered maybe branching out into some surrounding markets. There's some super cool, beautiful areas around Seattle that we have considered, but currently just trying to grow vertically instead of
Yeah.
horizontally, just for simplicity with vendors and cleaners and all those things. But there may come a time when we're open to
I
that.
just had a conversation with somebody that, is a broker in this business, buying and selling these types of companies. And a recommendation that I got was to go more vertical, right? And just to kind of stick and go deeper in the markets that you're
Yeah.
in. And not just go across the country. But I should say that with the caveat being that you have this missing hotel, which is in Texas, right? Which is very different from Seattle. So I want to get to that in a second.
Very different.
Um, but yeah, like I love the Seattle area. I mean, like this just it's so gorgeous in the Pacific Northwest. I always enjoy visiting. I've only been out there a couple times. I'm on the whole other side of the country from you, obviously in New England, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is a great place to live. Hopefully you feel the same. Um, all right,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
missing hotel. This is something I didn't know about until I kind of dug into your profile a little bit more beyond what I knew about you. What is this, and how did this come about?
Yeah, so I'll start with how it came about. I mean, as I mentioned before, throughout my soccer career, um, I just loved helping people invest in real estate, and I love talking about it. I'm one of those guys that I could talk about
Hmm.
financing, creative financing, different transaction strategies. I just loved it all. And so Joel Weigel from the same mastermind that we're in, um, got close with him over the last couple of years. I hired his revenue management company to do the pricing for our property management portfolio. And, we were having a conversation once upon a time, and I said, yeah, the PM business is doing well. Like, I'm getting to a point where I'm going to hire a local head of ops to help free up more of my time, because what I really want to get into is I want to help people build wealth through real estate. And he came back to me. He was like, "Oh, that's cool," yada yada. I knew that he had some resorts on the side. It wasn't really in the back of my mind. It wasn't a leading comment that I wanted to partner with him. But he basically came back to me a month or so later after talking with his business partner and said, "Well, hey, we have this incredible property in Marble Falls, Texas. It's about 45 minutes outside of Austin. It's 96 acres. There's 11 units on it now, experiential hospitality asset. So very much the Airbnb model at scale, where, it's individual units, they're spread out, it's in these beautiful rolling hills. And so it's very exclusive, tons of autonomy there for the guests, where, um, he came to me and says, well, this is my goal of like where Zach and I, his business partner at the time, now mine as well, of where we want to take this thing. And we could use someone like you to help on the capital side. Like, if you want to help people invest in real estate and you like the creative finance component of real estate, like, that's a great fit for somebody that we need within our company if we want to get to where we're going to get. And so that's where Clearline Capital was born, essentially. And then shortly after me, Kyle Hilken, who's also from the mastermind, came in as the fourth partner. And so we have it all split up. All of us love hospitality, unique stays, creating those types of experiences for our guests. And then, as the operations side of it is our bread and butter as well. So, mixing those two together, all of our mindsets of where we want to get to, how we all get along, it was just a great fit. And that ultimately was the final domino for me of saying, okay, I'm moving away from soccer, and we're going to move back to Seattle. So that's a little bit how Clearline Capital was born. And, within Clearline, the experiential hospitality is one of our vehicles that we
Did you not
have.
say earlier in this recording that you didn't know sales? Like, I think that you were having, yeah. So explain that to me, because I think you do. Like, first of all, you have your story down really well. Okay. But how do you raise private capital not knowing sales? You learned it somehow, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm actively on a learning journey, you could say. But I think I learned a ton from the property management business of going into those calls, like sometimes coming in too aggressive, pitching too hard. And like what I've learned from that business and tried to apply to capital raising, and I'm still learning, like with each call, I'll try and reflect afterwards, where could I have been better? What was my, point of view, my angle here, was it the right way? And I think what I've learned in a short time is largely that people invest in who they trust. Like it's so important, especially at a syndication level where we're trying to raise millions of dollars from people, and 50K to someone might be a ton of money, or 100K, or we just had a group of investors that committed 2 million for the expansion of Missing Hotel. And I think at its foundational level, so much of it is trust. Do I trust this person that I'm giving my money to? Yeah, the expertise and the deal and the numbers and all those things need to make sense. But at the end of the day, it's like, do you get a good feeling, a good gut feeling about giving your money to this person? And that's, I think, what one of my skill sets is being that type of person who like genuinely, why I got into this, because I want to give people access to really cool real estate opportunities. And we fortunately now have the experience with Clearline, and we have the assets, and we can go do that and double, triple people's money in a few years. And so that's kind of my mind frame, and my mindset going into these calls is, I want to build trust with this person and not just come off as a sales guy. So essentially sales is, don't be salesy. That's my conclusion.
Where do you find your leads? Is it just your network? People that you know from your past life?
For Clearline? Yeah, it's a combination. Inner circle, sort of that second layer. If you can get any type of warm introduction, that helps, especially with the trust building component of it. And then the next step above that is really trying to identify family offices, high net worth individuals, busy professionals, business owners, and trying to work backwards of like, who's going to be the type of person that's one, wants to be a passive investor, and also two, is going to be interested in the vehicle that we have to offer. And we have a couple different ones. Our other vehicle is luxury spec home builds in the North Dallas area. And, so if someone doesn't want to be tied into more of a commercial asset where it's 5 years, 7 years, potentially indefinite, right? Because our goal is not to build them and sell them. We want to hold them for a long, long time. If they want something shorter term, then maybe we say, hey, well, we have this other vehicle here. We do luxury home builds. It's 9 to 12 months. It's quick turn, solid return. And so it largely kind of depends on like what an investor's needs and preferences are.
That's pretty amazing that you've elevated yourself well out of this business into this new role. I mean, this is probably, was this your goal, or did you kind of find your way on this path?
I mean, it's happened quicker than I thought it would, for sure, to be in this position. And again, I'm feel very fortunate to be a partner with Clearline. But at the end of the day, it was just, there was a ton of alignment there of like, trying to have optimal work-life balance, which is hard at times, right? I mean, I think if people have young kids, it's really hard to do it all. But this is eventually where I wanted to get to, is if, I knew that if you could raise money, how do people achieve the life they want? They own assets or they own businesses. And what's a fast way to be able to own more assets or businesses? It's having capital partners. And so I think I combined that with I loved educating people, consulting. Like I still do it for a ton of guys in MLS. I have had a call with a guy yesterday who was like, hey, this is my situation. We want to buy a primary. Should I 1031? And it's not even like I'm pitching him as an investor. It's fun to be able to provide some of that insight and experience that I've had. So, Yeah, I mean, this is the position that I wanted to be in. I guess I just didn't think that it would
You
happen
know,
as
in past
quickly.
episodes of this, we've spoken with like a doctor, for example, who is now raising capital for real estate projects with an effort to try to get other doctors to invest their money and elevate them out of their day-to-day businesses. Because, you know, everyone kind of gets burnt out of what they're doing, regardless of if you play soccer, if you are a media salesperson like myself, or if you're, you know, an MD. Like you do it for 30 years and maybe you're like, all right, I want to do something else. But that person had that credibility to speak to other doctors on a doctor to doctor level and say, hey, listen, this is what I did. Like, if you're interested in doing things like this, like I could teach you how to do that. You've kind of created that interesting niche also with your teammates and other peers who maybe are in your cohort. They're about your age. Maybe they played the game for a couple of years. Maybe they're still playing. Maybe they're retired, you know, but you can kind of, you know, chop it up with them on that level and talk sports and talk about the next thing. And you come off as very credible to them because, you know, hey, if you can answer the questions about should I 1031 this or not, then immediately like you're their guy, right? This is and that's an interesting niche that you have that I think is going to lead to tons of great success as you're raising capital from other people who see you as that athlete that could also now speak real estate.
Yeah, for sure. And truly, like I would love to get into the other leagues as well. I've met with a few MLB guys that are based out here in Seattle that I just know from off-season training over the years. Um, I'm chatting with the player association that I was a rep when I was a player on the players union, and having some type of mentor like educational role where I might go down for preseason to some of the destinations where clusters of teams get together and train and play games and provide optional, whatever you want to call it, shooting the shit
Mm-hmm.
about real estate in a meeting room or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I would love to uh, get more into professional sports and helping educate, provide investment opportunities. If it's not, if what we're doing is not their cup of tea, I know many other operators and syndicators in this space that are absolutely crushing it with multifamily or retail or what have you. So, yeah, it's very fun and fulfilling, being that, connector of people. And again, whether that's our offerings that they come into, or I'm able to provide some more context and insight to their specific situation. Even guys that I've talked to that have financial advisors, and I look at their real estate portfolio and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, what is going on here? Like, you have $1 million house that's paid off, and your cash on cash is 5%, your return on equity is 20 years, and
Right.
you're 30. Like, it'd be different if you were 70. So it's just fun, shedding light on things like that and really opening guys' eyes, because guys in MLS are making more money now than they ever have, and some guys are making enough where absolutely, if they have the right investment decisions, that they can
Mm-hmm.
retire off that money. So, yeah, it's a fun space to be in, and obviously being an ex-player, it helps build some of that trust and
Yeah, it's
credibility.
such an awesome little niche that you have going on. Um, I didn't realize that you had all these different elements of what you're doing, but you're accelerating really quickly, and you know I commend you for leveraging your past and not just leaning on it as oh you know the former goalie of all the teams that you were on, you know, instead taking that and taking your network and trying to elevate them and say, hey guys, like this is what I did. Like if you're looking to, you know, have a great next 35 years of your life, you know, because hey, you're probably not gonna be playing well into your 30s, like as an athlete. Just the odds are that I'm guessing most of your teammates are probably in their 20s, right? Early 30s. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I retired. I was 32 last year, and
You're
I
the
think
old
there was
guy.
probably two
Yeah.
guys on the. There was probably two guys older than me, a bunch of, a couple 17-year-olds, five, six
Yeah.
kids under 20.
They're not thinking about any of this
So
stuff, right? Like they're thinking about becoming YouTube
yeah,
influencers. Yeah.
no, and nor would I. If I was in their shoes, like I'm not. It's not that I'm expecting them to be. It's just one of those, like, if it's not coming from their parents or agent or financial advisor, or the more that there can just be someone in their ear that's like, hey, dude, you're 20 years old making an 800 grand a year. you park this in a few real estate properties, even if you go into the public markets, like do
Right.
something with that. Right. And hopefully you get to play another 12, 15 years. But, whenever that day comes, you're making enough now that you'll really set yourself and your
Yeah.
family up well.
Well, we'll link to all your websites, missinghotel.com, Soundstays, Clear Line Capital. I'll leave you with this. Like, what's next with Missing Hotel? I know that you're working on expanding the property.
We are, yeah. So we just secured a final commitment for the 2.25 million from an equity side. Now it's on me to go secure the debt partner. So we'll need 4 million there to fully fund the expansion. It'll be about 6.3 million. And then what's next there is, we have our eyes on there's an island off of the state of Georgia that Joel and Zach bought about a year ago. That's going to be a super cool. We'll probably be able to do 12 units there. Very early on, we're just getting the renderings going. We haven't put out any marketing or any material like that, but that's what's next on the horizon for us is Missing Island out in Georgia. So it's going to be really
cool.
The
Missing Island and the Missing Hotel. What other missing brands are coming up? We'll have to find out. Hopefully many. Well, Spencer, best of luck with everything. I really appreciate the chat. This has been great to get to know you a little bit better and to see all the stuff you're working on and to see how different you are from a year ago and from 2 years ago. I mean, like how life changes us, both with the things that are happening to us around us and the things that we make happen. So you certainly are out there making it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the show or watching it. If you've enjoyed the episode, we love 5-star reviews. We read all your comments. And if you want to be a guest on the show, you can go to smartstateshow.com, watch all the past episodes, and fill out our lead form. Let us know who you are, and we'll see if we can get you recording. Spencer, it's been great. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.